Kate Mila Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. This is our Saturday book, and this is video number 2 of Keepers of the Garden by Dolores Cannon. And I know I mentioned that it's been ages since I read this book. I've got a pile over there to get through. And frequently when I read these books, I'm taking notes on them, and I've got a time limit. I set goals for myself, how many pages I'm going to cover in a day in order to get these books read and prepared for everybody. And it can be a distraction to me because I'm more interested in reading it and getting the notes on the page, and I forget what I've read. And I just want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to do this, because I just have a sense this is really important information. It's really important. And it's information that we don't get in the mainstream. It would be probably criticized, possibly ridiculed by some, but it rings true for me. If that means anything to anybody, it rings true for me. And if you can, people have opinions about these books and opinions about the whole sort of, I don't want to use the word following for Dolores Cannon's books. And so I've been very careful as I've read them to try to maintain a sense of neutrality and to try to just not jump in hook, line, and sinker, to really think about what she has to say. And going back over this now with you guys drives home for me how true a lot of this rings. So I don't know if I'm just rambling or if that helps anybody, but I would say the willing suspension of disbelief is important here. To not dismiss these ideas because they are really a departure from the mainstream. There are important messages here. Very important messages. And I hope that people who are ready to hear them will hear them. So, enough of me. We're on chapter 8, imprinting. Now, this is really hard to understand, but it's interesting. So, Phil is in a trance, and he says, "This is my first physical life, but it's not my first time on Earth." He said, "I've been on Earth before in the form of imprints, and I've been an assistant." So Cannon is confused, and she says, well, he's talked about earlier lives, but they were imprints or spiritual assistants. They weren't really physical incarnations. He didn't get born as a baby and, live a body. Souls can draw information from the Akashic records and internalize this imprint of information they get from the records and make it their experience. And there's no way to tell the difference. This is the part that's a little confusing. Phil and therefore Cannon would not be able to tell the difference. I guess I'm remembering more than I thought. Would not be able to tell the difference between an imprint and a real physical life. And the question is, does it matter? The imprint is experienced by the soul as 100% real. And the point is to learn the lessons. And this provides souls that are new to the planet with the knowledge to help them function successfully on the planet. So, for example, star people have no previous experience with Earth, but they come to help. They need something with which to draw on to successfully deal with day-to-day experiences. And or else they'd always feel total disharmony with life on the planet. And this would cause confusion, and that negates learning. So imprinting helps to not feel alien, to have no experience of fear or anger. and then to come onto the earth would be traumatic. It would paralyze them. We have a lot of really intense, wildly varied emotions that many entities don't experience. We rely more on our subconscious than we realize canon is told. A new entity, a star person or an alien, would have no subconscious to draw from. So that's why they do this imprinting. They get this knowledge from the Akashic records. And all information there was really experienced by somebody. So it's all in keeping with the path of reincarnation. Imprints become part of the soul and explains why more than one person will claim to have experienced a certain life. Like, oh, I was Cleopatra in a former life. I'm not saying I was. I'm using that as an example. I would never have been anything other than a washerwoman or something. Anyway, more than one person can claim to have experienced a former life because it can have been imprinted as available knowledge from the Akashic records. And it's unimportant if you're an imprint or it was your actual life, because the soul absorbs the knowledge, the learning, the experience the same way, either way. So, example, life of Cleopatra is, as lived by Cleopatra, can be imprinted on other later souls, and it doesn't matter. It's equally valid because the other souls receive all the events, emotions, learning, etc. However, each individual soul would process this information differently. Past life regression is a learning tool, but it doesn't matter beyond learning. And this is something that becomes even more and more reiterated as she goes through her books. And the message, it starts out all fun and games. They're doing past life regressions. Everybody's fascinated. Oh, I was Cleopatra in a former life. It's very exciting. But it really, most of us need more to focus on our present life, is the message. So a new soul to be imprinted is given the imprint that will help to serve the goals of this particular incarnation, to learn lessons from other people's experiences. It's like a library, and each life is a book, and you can share. You can borrow a book from the library. There's a hierarchy of spirits, and they decide which imprint would be best for the purposes of this soul that's moving onto the earth plane. It's like a pattern, but it doesn't have the to work off the karma. You don't accumulate the karma of somebody else's life. You get the pattern of the lessons that they learned. It's a tool, but it doesn't help you to make real life decisions. That's up to you. It's not telling you what to do, but it's giving you a frame of reference. Free will lets the soul reject a particular imprint. You can receive imprints after birth if it's necessary. Like, you do a lot of stuff when you're asleep, whether you know it or not. It's like packing for a trip. You forget something, you can pick it up later. I like that analogy. This can happen in a dream. It can happen in a trauma, like a near-death experience, for example. It can happen in a joyful event because you are opening yourself up to receiving it without, subconsciously. It's not something you're aware of. Imprints may not happen for some, but they're absolutely necessary for star people because they come without being born into a body. They manifest a body. We don't know that. We don't get to know who is and isn't a person like that. And they're sustained by mental energy, and they come for special purposes, special messages, and they can do this indefinitely. And the message here, the thing that Canon wanted us to really be aware of, to realize, understand that there are those among us who are not human. They look 100%, act 100%, behave, interact with us 100% human. They're not human. And their mission is enlightenment. And they're here to help. And there's no danger. They're not to be afraid. And we are not to be afraid of them. But how can you be afraid of something you don't know? So one of the interesting things that comes up, and it just came to my mind, so I think it's important to mention it, is that oftentimes they lead ordinary lives, very ordinary. They do nothing remarkable. They just go about their daily business. The effect they have is on an energetic level. Their vibration is so much higher because they're advanced beings, and they're in this apparently human body because their proximity, just their actually being next to you, you receive energy from them and helps to elevate your vibratory level. Very interesting. And I guess the way to look at it would be there are some people, for whatever reason, they give you bad vibes, and some people who give you good vibes. There may be something to that. So they're as real as any human would be, but they don't reveal who they are. And it's to protect themselves because not all of them know that this is what they are. But it's also to avoid the witch hunt. So, and I'm not saying that George Santos is a star being. I'm not saying that, I promise. Some of them don't really need to have imprints because they've learned enough about Earth to carry out their mission without it, but this is a handy tool, a resource. Emotions are shared in the universe, and ETs are not unemotional. They just manifest them differently, and we have to get rid of our fear. Our fear holds us back. If we get rid of our fear, we will be able to join this universal brotherhood. Fear is contagion. It's contagious, and therefore they isolate us. It's like a quarantined disease. I thought that it was really interesting that she used that expression. The incarnation of star people is recent in the last few decades. There have been visitations from the beginning. 5 of them have come who are not members of the human race. I guess this would be enlightened beings, you know. I don't know. It doesn't go into it. So, Chapter 9, Death in a Needle. Phil told Dolores Cannon of growing up a twin with no real bond to his twin. They were so totally different. But he always felt that he didn't belong, that he wasn't right. He was very confused by human behavior, disturbed by human emotions. He felt like he didn't fit in. He had a fear of emotional involvement and commitment. And at the age of 22, he began to have these dreams that were like out-of-body experiences. And in one, he was told, you are something greater from another universe. And in his dreams, he could communicate better. And he did it by thought, telepathic, but he was more capable of expressing himself. He said it was much harder on a waking plane, that communicating by words felt inadequate to him. He was disappointed with this plane and he wanted to leave. He had homesickness for the plane that he existed in his out-of-body experiences. He went on a trip with his family, and I wrote down, they went to California and he packed a needle. I don't remember what that was about. I think we're talking drugs here. California made him very depressed, and he went to a deserted beach to kill himself, yes, by injecting. Oh, I should probably warn everybody that we're talking about suicide. I had forgotten this was in the story. It's a short story. So he went to this deserted beach and he was going to inject alcohol, but he was stopped by thoughts of the effect it would have on his twin brother. And he went home to hear that as he sat on the beach with this needle and he almost killed himself, his twin almost died in a scuba diving accident at exactly the same time. So that night, he had a powerful out-of-body experience, and in this experience, he left the earth, and he didn't have a memory, but he was surprised to know, he didn't have a memory when he was awake, but he was surprised to find out in this out-of-body experience that he was actually an alien entity that had come to Earth to help. And that was why he felt so out of place and unhappy and didn't understand people's emotions and why they treated each other the way they did. And because it was alien to him. So now, chapter 10, the breakthrough to the 3 spires. So as she mentioned before, she usually works with somnambulism and transform people into their past life personality, and they don't remember any of it when they come out of the trance. So she could relate to a present life while in a trance. Oh, Phil, I'm sorry, not she. Phil could relate to his present life while in a trance, and he was able to remember it afterwards. This was very unusual. He was very unusual. And this is basically channeling. And he says that he feels expanded during these awareness, higher awarenesses. And he's given complex concepts that just spill out. He doesn't have to come up with them. He doesn't know really where they come from, but he just receives them. It's like channeling. It's not from his imagination. He's compelled to say it as he sees it, and he doesn't change anything that he sees. He just has to go with it. So it's kind of almost out of his control. He's so compelled. So he saw much more when he was in his trance state, but he wasn't able to really communicate. They couldn't find the words for it to tell Dolores. And she said, well, maybe you're not supposed to be volunteering all of this information. And he said, that's probably right. And she said, this has to be asked, but we may not get the answers. And he says, you have to be more spiritual and more psychic. And he feels like he's getting more psychic. So in his next trance, there's a woman present at this session named Harriet. And Cannon noticed that this person, Harriet, had some sort of vibratory effect on Phil. She was like a battery, and it increased his abilities. And Phil says, this is my home, and he cries because he's seeing a place and he's realizing he misses it. It's his real home. So let's see what he says here. Oh, and this is what he describes. These spires. And he says that the spires are monuments to his civilization, but they also act as an antenna and a focal point for planetary communication. It's his true home, and he misses it badly, and he really has a sense of not fitting in here. He gets very emotional. He says it is a physical place like Earth, and the spires are the symbology of the 3 evolutions of his race, and a 4th will be added when they achieve that part. These people are not 3-dimensional. They're not physical. They're not gendered. They procreate Oh no, he says procreation is a physical aspect of incarnation. And when you move beyond that, then that is not even a thing. The physical bodies, actually on this plane, they don't house the soul energy. The souls exist without bodies. It's a 3D planet, but it's inhabited by energy entities. So they're kind of in between, I guess. The energy forms create the environment to sustain their purpose of learning. And it's energy bonding, and that is kind of a form of creation or procreation. So the planet is physical, 3D, and the beings who live on it are spiritual, 4D. They can be pure energy and have an energy body, but that's not the same as a physical body. A being of energy draws energy around itself, and whatever that being is like is what the body looks like. The beings are of energy. They have no physical properties, but they surround themselves with a vehicle of energy like a shield, which you could call their body. The population is coming and going, and it changes all the time. It's not a permanent group. They're beings and energy entities, souls visiting from other places. They come to learn, and they live in an environment of love. Nobody is a stranger. They have universal intuitive awareness of individual energy beings, a knowing on a spiritual level. You would see nothing because it's an energy civilization, and it's going on, but with our eyeballs, we would see nothing. Phil tells Canon that we are in the middle of a civilization of energy and spirits around us in this room right now. And the spires are monuments and antenna, kind of like the Earth pyramids were. And the high energy that they're dealing with determines the shape. His civilization started as 3D on another planet and it evolved. The Earth is progressing towards this where we won't need reincarnation anymore. As we achieve a higher level of progression, we'll have new surroundings because it'll reflect our energy. And the reminders of the past inhibit looking to the future. It's a little warning, like, let's not obsess about our past lives. Let's start trying to improve and achieve something for the future. It's healthy to look back, but don't dwell on it and don't relive it too much. Phil explains his story is revealed in parts. It's all true, but it's not the whole story. We're not ready. As he and Dolores Cannon are ready to hear it, they will be told it in utter trances. He says, within his original civilization, there are levels of advancement, and some beings are more or less evolved. Wanting food and wanting entertainment is not a sign of a level of evolution. In other words, you're not a lowlife just because you want to have fun. Looking for food or looking for entertainment can simply be to enjoy the pleasure of it, and that's okay. There's no birth or death. You just grow in awareness, this civilization of his. He says that souls naturally want to climb the level of experience, the ladder of experience. Chapter 11, Rushing to Earth's Aid. So this friend Harriet, when she was at the session with Phil, he had a deeper trance, was able to see and say more. He was getting more philosophical information, and Canon was surprised because she had been used to asking questions about past history because people were looking at past lives. This new sort of spiritual bend was new to her. So she decided to put Phil in a trance at a meeting of a metaphysical group and see what that did. So in a trance with this group, Phil says, I'm home. and he sees the spires again. And he says the spires are the evolution of the spirituality of the population. The population stayed on the physical plane, but they evolved from the physical to the ethereal or the spiritual. That's spire number 1 is they elevated in spiritual stuff. Spire number 2, spire number 1 is that they stayed on the physical plane but became ethereal. Spire number 2 memorializes their elevation in spirituality, and spire number 3 means they became even higher and became pure energy. Many different energies are light beings. This is just a term for a variety of energy as they appear in the physical world, and they could manifest in any 5 of our senses. We often don't know what it is we're looking at or interacting with. He left from a desire to assist. It's like leaving home to go to university. He would learn something more, he would be elevated, and he could offer help. So there is now a galactic effort to help the earth that, like neighbors rushing to our aid, it's a community, and we have no machinery, no technology to access, but someday we will. And people are looking at the wrong end of the spectrum. The SETI, they're looking for the wrong thing. Or they're looking for the right thing. They're looking for it the wrong way. So our Washington Monument acts as a transmitter like the spires in that drawing. It is in view, and the sight of it creates a link for ET individuals on Earth. They get messages from it. Isn't that interesting? It's a transfer of energy that stone vibrations channel energy, and the shape of the pyramid at the top is significant. It focuses the energy. The builders were not aware of this on a conscious level. The information was given to them subconsciously, channeled to them. Overall, the picture of the world conditions is transmitted to our brothers in the universe. It's a monitoring system. The whole thing that happened, the nuclear attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was felt because it disrupted the energy channels. It's like a boulder, and it's been thrown in a stream, and it redirects the flow. The nukes are pinpoints of disharmony in the galaxy, and they're felt in far universes, and there are many universes. On many levels, there are governments, individual and collective. And the word God, you can put a lot of different words in place of that, but she uses this just because I think it resonates for more people. But God is the sum of everything. We are collectively God. We are individual pieces of God. All are one. All the universe together is God. The creation is a manifestation of God. Our universe is young and violent, and it was formed. It's violent because that's how it was formed. The Big Bang was one part of a continuing evolution of universes. Closest to the truth is the oscillating universe theory. This doesn't explain everything, but it's closest. The cycles of expansion and contraction, it's sometimes called the Big Crunch, which I'd never heard of, will lead to a new bang. And basically, she's told that what you're looking at here is the universal law of rhythm. She's told that souls, us, we are personalized pieces of God. We don't know all the reason, the sum of all the knowledge. God is all knowledge. He, it, she, they, I don't know, exists everywhere. You just have to tune in and be receptive and open. There are many, on a huge number of universal planes, experiencing everything with us. And some wish to be here but can't because they have other obligations, and some volunteer to help us. This time on Earth is a grand scheme in God's plan. These guys come as volunteers, sometimes to lead just by example. Just to lead by example, and they have a subtle effect. Like I said, sometimes just their presence will affect the energy. And they just seem like ordinary people. You just won't know on a conscious level. I think it's really interesting. So the Earth was at a point of suicide before help rushed in to us from around the universe. They felt a sense of to bring a sense of increased morality and to be a stabilization of this condition. And this is now occurring. We're in a far more critical stage than Atlantis ever reached, and we are on the brink of total annihilation of ourselves and the planet. Now, this is in 93. It remains to be seen when we read the other books, So our path was a path to total destruction by nuclear war, and they have intervened in that. We would go on as spirits. You don't die because you're not your body, but this would interfere with the stage of evolution of the planet, and it would upset the apple cart everywhere, and they didn't want that to happen. Time is not right for this world to be destroyed. Much learning and good and helping can come from this planet yet. It has a lot to offer still. It's not meant to be destroyed by its inhabitants. It will eventually be destroyed, but it will occur naturally at the proper time. It as an evolutionary step, and everyone will be ready for that, but not now, not the way we're going. It would be a premature death, and the Earth, all of us, are adolescent. We're not even adults yet on this planet. When the time comes, we'll be ready for it. Nuclear war interferes with order and the cosmic scheme. Ultimate goals would be met, but individual plans would have to change. And thought energy from our planet So there's thought energy from some on our planet that influences us to speed up our own destruction, and this is misguided. It's not evolved. It's pretty apparent. Past experience and the environment will create thoughts that lead to bad acts because energy manifests. So, there are some contrary forces at play. The acceptance of the possibility creates an open door for it to happen. So we have to direct our mental energy to the thought, it's impossible. And these beings that come to help bring in new energy with fresh ideas and hope. These are the star people. And it's up to us to just reject the notion of nuclear behavior. Okay, so they bring an infusion of a new way of seeing things. They show by example the right path. People fear ETs, and we shouldn't. We fear what we don't understand. They're peace-loving, and their peace-loving nature has been planted in us now. Chapter 12, Starseed. Canon remarks on how seemingly unrelated remarks and ideas lead her to new paths of information. She finds it absolutely phenomenal that it'll happen on different continents, different countries, different time periods in her work. She'll stumble on the same stuff. So Phil asks a question of Dolores Cannon. What was the origin of different races? I'm sorry. I said that backwards. She tells Phil to ask what was the origin of different races. And the answer that he gets is that the differences are an evolutionary process. People did not have the ability to travel and intermingle for a really long time. And environment affected the appearance of people. There's really no difference. It's just the effects of the environment. So there used to be, I thought this was really interesting, there used to be people that had green skin, and they lived in heavily jungled areas, and there were people who had blue skin, and they're now extinct. And wasn't there a cartoon about blue people? I didn't see it, but okay. So this is reflected in our subconscious today. We still kind of tune into that. We talk about being green with envy, or being blue in the face, or purple with rage. People were different. And it can sometimes reappear like a recessive trait as a birthmark, a port wine stain. So those who died out simply weren't as aggressive as the rest of us, and they were more spiritual, and those appearances died out. Original life was seated in an area of the Nile. The word seated is very interesting. In an area of the Nile, and in a few other different places, not just that one place. And when the earth environment finally became conducive to life, it received what's called a life charter, which is a step up on the evolutionary process. Seed cells were brought from more evolved places in the universe, like we were a garden. And today, that garden is ready to produce fruit, and the kind of fruit it produces will depend on our free will. Eventually, we will seed other places. Seeding is the same as bringing light to the planet, enlightenment. There are also earth scientists today working on putting life on other planets, colonizing. They're being considered. The moon, the moon and Mars are being considered. But we're limited in this right now by our technology. The moon was ripped off of the Earth by collision with a wandering star when the Earth was in a molten stage. The moon has no atmosphere and therefore no life. It has been visited as kind of a resting place for intergalactic travelers, but they remove traces of their presence, and what we see is all natural, and it still has occasional visitors, and possibly does exist the possibility that we might end up colonizing the moon. Chapter 13, The Explorers. So this is a new session with Phil. He sees trees, and he knows he's waiting for 3 crewmen near a spacecraft, which is silver and round with 4 legs, with a ramp to a door about 30 feet in diameter. It's a scout ship from a larger mothership. This is Earth, and it's a different past life for Phil. 3 crew are taking soil samples. The Earth is soon to be made a life planet, and this is an expedition to determine its readiness, like of the soil, for plant and animal life. But there's nobody yet, no animals, no humans. The samples are sent to a central or super universe to be analyzed for readiness, and this is like the central point of all creation. He says, we are God. He is us. All are one. God is not an entity. God is but we, and we can't comprehend it. He won't describe the crew because humans would judge. They would look extreme to us if he described them. These particular motherships are cigar shapes, and some do see them. They go to even bigger ships farther out. The mothership doesn't penetrate the atmosphere. It comes from an area of Andromeda, and it was talked about in a session she did in 1984. So whatever book that was. So we were seated in a garden, and now we have almost reached a time to fly with our brothers, is what Phil says in his trance. The seeds are brought from many places. She asks which was the first, human or animals, and the answer is that humans are animals. We are all brothers, and we have a dual nature, the light, which is ethereal, and the dark, which is physical. And then there's a description here. Let me find the page. We are trying to reach a consensus on how to answer this. The question is, did we evolve from animals in an evolutionary process? And so Phil talks we, because there's more than one entity using him to get the point across. We're trying to reach a consensus on how to answer this in such a way that the forbidden zone is not crossed. Information they can't say. And yet you are still given an answer that you can comprehend. We will say this: there was a gradual and attentive pruning of an established stock, which was nurtured and cared for very attentively to ensure that the outcome is this which we have on us at this time. Speaking from a vehicle's point of view, body. It's no accident that the physical bodies which humans wear at this time are as they are, for it was carefully planned that they be just so, or just such. I don't know if that answers the question adequately for curiosity's sake, but he's told there always have been experiments, and the garden has been seeded, tended, pruned, but intruders came and disrupted the plan, and because of this, much turmoil occurred for humans. But, the best laid plans is what he says. It's not the right time to give us details. Weeds have grown everywhere and must be pulled. As there are cars from different countries, there are different kinds of UFOs from different ETs. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. They come from many different places, many different purposes. These aren't concepts that humans are able to understand that fully explain all of this, the seeding of the planet, but it's our true history. If it could be given telepathically, the story would be more complete. I guess words are inadequate, but thoughts would do the trick. And future seeding will be spiritual. So they're hinting at the fact that entities will come, but they won't necessarily bring new body, physical type stuff. It'll be a spiritual evolution. Souls are here now from other planets to raise our consciousness. So where will we go? Each will decide our own fate. It's really important. People get in contact with me all the time. Are we going to be all right? Well, yeah, of course we are. That doesn't mean that your body won't die. It doesn't mean that there won't be all kinds of nonsense that goes on. But that's not who you are. Who you are is your spirit. And your spirit will be fine. You will be fine. And you are who you don't remember who you are. But as an individual spirit, you will be fine. And it's part of your individual personal evolution to go through whatever it is that you end up going through. And there's no guarantee that the lesson you have to learn is going to be problem-free. There's no guarantee. But the message is that some people will stay here. Some people will carry the earth seed to other planets. Both of those groups of people are on spiritual journeys and on a physical plane. They're spreading the individual energy, and earth energy is unique to earth. And after the original seeding of earth, the spirit was seeded when the human body became, when it became a place where the human body could survived, became habitable. The spirit in animals hasn't been discussed yet, but it will be. So the body inhabits the spirit. The spirit is the true form. The spirit is really what matters. We come from all over the universe, not necessarily native to the planet Earth, but some have been here so long that they are regarded as native. So human origin is a combination of stuff in the Bible, stuff from Darwin, stuff from mythology. They're not mutually exclusive. They're all complementary. Little grains of truth in all of them. And in the beginning, many life forms were introduced and monitored to determine the best form, the best adaptation for survival. That's the survival of the fittest. And the voice says that God observes his children at their tasks. And then she's told, we will not give you false information. Chapter 14, Weeds in the Garden. So this is a new session, and it's a private session with Phil. And Cannon is told that she and Phil and the voices that are talking through him are a collective council, and they are all together in the subconscious of Phil. It's getting kind of crowded in there. They will not give information that would frighten or pre-program a human seeking to elevate their spiritual enlightenment, because we have free will. Some information is not to be channeled. It's too radical to the human point of view. So Cannon might not ask her question. She can ask, but they might not answer, is what she's told. So she says, so describe the crewmen that Phil, as this alien, is working with. They're short, they have silver suits against radiation, and that's all that they will tell her. So Phil later remembered that they were gray. Then she asks, the plant and mineral life were already here before humans. How did that happen? The answer was the evolution of the primordial soup. The questions asked, couldn't humans have eventually come from this primordial soup? And the answer is, this is speculation. The time for seeding was right. So why wait for crops to appear if all is ready for seeding? And it must be, there must be direction and manipulation to get the desired results. And she asks, is it possible? Oh, the answer is, part of the answer is it possible for life to evolve spontaneously? Yes, and it has elsewhere. And she said, you tended the garden, what interfered? He said, a meteor hit the earth with a virus, and it disrupted life forms and mingled with the life here, and like a dandelion seed blown by the wind, and the farmer isn't able to get rid of all of it. So this is not about good people genetics versus bad people genetics. This is just about a random thing that happened. This was not foreseen, and there was much sadness because it was this experiment here on this planet that was going so well. So do not misunderstand. It's not about hybrids. It's not about genetics. It's about weeds. It's not crops, but bad soil. I don't know what they're getting at there. So it's not the living things themselves that are tainted. It's not a reason to single out any group of humans. And she said that, you know, I'm gonna add this just for the sake of YouTube. We're not talking about COVID-19. We're talking about something that is purported to have happened at the creation of the planet Earth before humans were actually here. So the soil of the garden was contaminated, and it led to a disease. Before that, there was no disease. So this is the origin of disease on planet Earth that came as humans were being, according to the book, came as humans were being evolved. However, some diseases come from our ignorance of the use of nature and elements, but most come from this meteor. They're from a completely different planet. The ETs decided not to start over because so much work was already done. This happened early, and humans evolved with the diseases. And this is not to be equated, they say, with the Garden of Eden, that the truth is too complicated for us yet. But don't get confused. We're not talking Adam and Eve here. The ETs have no intent to foster strife between belief systems, but they want to gradually awaken us. The Bible is not well understood. It's legend based on mere shreds of fact. We can say nothing more. We are 12 entities with areas of expertise, and we need to discuss this to find the consensus explanation. And you are not ready yet. So that's the end of that chapter, and this is where I'll end this video. And I hope you're enjoying this book. This is very, 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 very interesting. And I think it's important to remember, I have not covered Dolores Cannon's book in chronological order. It didn't even occur to me. And the truth is that her information really sort of evolves with her growing body of work. So it might behoove everybody to read them in order, but I've read them as I've read them, and that's how I'm going to present them. And maybe you could rewatch the videos in the appropriate order of publication. So this is one of her earlier books, I think. It's very interesting. So this is the end of video number 2, and I will be back next weekend. And I would love if you would spread the word about this book. That would be great. And give me questions in the comments. That would be great. And I've mentioned before, I'll mention it again. I get these weird series of comments will not be there, and then they'll be there, or they'll be not on my phone, but they'll be on my iPad. And I don't know what to make of that. I am about 99.9% sure it's some sort of computer knowledge that I don't have. But if you ask a question or make a comment and I ignore you, it's because I haven't seen it, because I answer all the comments I see. So if you don't get a response and it's something important, try again, because I will respond. So spread the word. Up to, as of this morning, I only need 55 more subscribers to reach 5,000. Very exciting. It's so near and yet so far. So do your best to recruit new subscribers. They don't even have to watch. They should, though. So thank you very much for watching. I will come back and read cards on this tomorrow. So please give me questions for the cards. That would be really good. And in the meantime, have a great day, and Slanga Foil. Slàinte.